Hello everyone! Now you will hear a brief summary of the movie Casanova. Enjoy watching. Giacomo's mother abandoned him when he was still a little boy. When Casanova grew up, he started seducing about one woman a day, and it didn't matter that most of them were married. The fame of the Venetian libertine spread throughout Italy.
Casanova, tell me I'm your only one. Of course, I say that to everyone.
In the evening, Casanova seduced a girl who belonged to a monastic order, and by morning he had to run for his life because the Holy Inquisition had started hunting down the seducer. Sister Beatrice was far from the first nun Casanova had taken to bed. The young man ran across the rooftops. If he was caught, he would be sent straight to the gallows. By chance, the lover ended up at a university, where they were discussing the role of women in society. Francesca Bruni, who was pretending to be a man, took the floor. She defends women's rights and refers to the books of Bernard Guarde, a Venetian writer who advocates for equality. The Inquisition has long been interested in this heretic. Casanova was eventually caught, and the nun confirmed that he had seduced her. The criminal was to be hanged the very next day, but once again, the ruler of the city intervened on Casanova's behalf. The thing is, Beatrice is to become the mistress of one of the cardinals, so it is imperative that no one finds out about her loss of virginity. Thus, the accusation was left without its main witness, and Casanova had to be released once again. The Doge declared that he would no longer cover for the womanizer. Either he finds himself a wife in the coming days, or he will be banished from the city. In addition, he must forget about duels and drunken escapades. Casanova, together with his servant Lupo, began searching for a bride. However, none of them are perfect. Some snore loudly at night, while others poisoned their previous husbands. Suddenly, Casanova remembered Vittoria Donato, the famous Venetian virgin. Giovanni Bruno, the brother of the feminist Francesca, has been in love with her for a long time. Giovanni, step aside or the neighbors will start mistaking you for a gargoyle. Francesca herself will have to marry a wealthy merchant who will pay off all her family's debts, and her mother doesn't care what the girl herself thinks about it. Giovanni noticed two guys who had come to propose to Vittoria. Her father refused Casanova, since he was saving his daughter from such a debauchee. But Vittoria herself has long been burning with desire and believes that only such a master of love could truly satisfy her.
I want him. Please, please, Father. Only with him can I be happy.
Giovanni immediately attacked his rival and threw his glove in his face 3 times. Casanova reluctantly agreed to the duel, but introduced himself under the name of his servant, Lupo Salvato, since he himself was forbidden to participate in duels. Clumsy Giovanni fences extremely poorly, so before the fight, Francesca secretly put on his mask. The girl fought Casanova as an equal, when suddenly Lupo exposed the switch.
You would have killed him. And you? Francesca Bruni? He's my little brother.
Casanova kept lying that his name was Lupo Salvato because Francesca hates the famous womanizer. Few people actually know what Casanova really looks like. After talking with the progressive young woman, Casanova realized that she was exactly the one he needed. However, there's one small problem. Both Casanova and Francesca are engaged. After talking with Giovanni, Casanova found out that Francesca doesn't know what her fiancé looks like. Meanwhile, Vittoria's father is already buying the dowry since there are only 3 days left until their wedding. Casanova followed Francesca and discovered where she disappears to all day. In that house, some man was sleeping, apparently her lover. And also, judging by the manuscripts, this is the very same writer, Bernardo Guardi, who writes about the oppression of women by men. Now it's clear how he won her heart. The Inquisitor of Venice received a warning from the church. There have been 127 complaints filed against Casanova, and yet he's still not at the gallows. It feels like they're covering for the libertine. That's why the Inquisitor started keeping an eye on Casanova to gather compromising material on him. It turned out that the man who was sleeping was just an ordinary drunk, whose real name is indeed Bernardo Guardi. But all the feminist pamphlets are actually written by Francesca herself, and she uses his name as a pseudonym. Her books are extremely popular among the women of Venice.
My window is open? My dear, there are so many windows, but so little time.
Lupo found out that Francesca's fiancé is named Papriso, and he is very wealthy. That very Pietro Papriso, a pork-fat merchant and a very fat man, had just arrived from Genoa. He prepared advertising posters so that everyone would know about his excellent lard. Casanova immediately met Papriso. He was supposedly sent by Francesca's family. He will help the wealthy man prepare for his meeting with the bride. The inquisitor was busy with his investigation when suddenly Bishop Pucci, the most formidable and ruthless inquisitor in all of Italy, burst into his office. He will send his clueless predecessor somewhere closer to the equator, where he will most likely be eaten by the natives. Pucci will personally take charge of capturing Casanova. The adventurer brought Papriso to his home and began rummaging through his belongings. In the chest, Casanova found one of the books written by Francesca and lied to Papriso, claiming that he had written it himself. He said he was the famous writer Bernardo Guardi. Papriso was astonished, because this man clearly knows how to please women. The fat man asked him to help him transform, since he certainly couldn't be called handsome. In just an hour, he would have to meet with Francesca. However, instead of him, Casanova dropped by the Bruni family for tea and announced that his real name was Pietro Paprizo. He claimed to be Francesca's fiancé and supposedly hid his identity to make sure of the bride's virtue. Suddenly, Bishop Pucci arrived and was introduced to the fake Paprizo. Pucci intends to execute not only Casanova, but also the writer Bernardo Guardi. After all, Guardi's books sow discontent among women and uncertainty among men. Pucci's men had just captured a drunkard who was pretending to be the writer. Meanwhile, Lupo arranged a spa treatment for Paprizo. He is being stretched out on a table to make him slimmer. His body was smeared with a mixture of fat, mint jelly, and coffee grounds. A mesh is responsible for the facelift. Paprizo looked in the mirror and admitted that the treatment was working. He had become much more attractive. Casanova promised Paprizo that he would take his place at the carnival, while Paprizo should continue his transformation. Meanwhile, Bernardo Guardi was tortured so that the writer would confess his sins. But here's the thing, the drunkard can't even read. Pucci asked his new acquaintance to help him find Casanova.
Will you help me catch Casanova? Yes, or I'm not Paprizo.
Giovanni is still dreaming about his neighbor Victoria, but now his gaze has fallen on a courtesan who lured him to her. The experienced lady of the night intends to take the young man's virginity. The adventurer arrived at the masquerade wearing a white mask. He is Paprizo and Francesca's fiancé, and with the black mask, he is Casanova and Vittoria Donato's fiancé. The Doge is pleased. His favorite has finally settled down and found a worthy bride. Victoria can't wait to give herself to Casanova, but just then her father arrives at the palace. The girl hid under the table and grabbed onto Casanova when he decided to sit down.
What are you doing down there?
The table kept shaking, even after Francesca and her mother and Victoria's father sat down at it. And Casanova is acting very strangely as well. Francesca looked under the table, and a piglet ran out from underneath. Victoria managed to escape from the other side. Pucci burst into Casanova's house.
It's hard to believe that women could be attracted to something like this.
Come here, piggy. The inquisitor grabbed the merchant and continued stretching him on the rack. The man did not enjoy these procedures. Fortunately, he had a piece of paper with his own portrait on it. That way, he was able to prove that he was the real Pietro Paprizo and that he lived in the house of the writer Bernardo Guardi. And at that moment, everything clicked in Pucci's mind. Casanova was the heretic writer. Who else could glorify women like that? Pucci returned to the ball to finally find Casanova. The real Pietro Paprizo also showed up here. That's how Andrea found out that she and her daughter had been deceived. However, the woman wasn't upset because she absolutely adores chubby men. Her husband had been enormous. The modest Paprizo also fell in love with Andrea at first sight. He even grabbed Pucci by the throat when he dared to raise his voice at this beautiful woman. Francesca went on a hot air balloon ride with the fake Paprizo. Witchcraft, Pucci exclaimed indignantly. Victoria saw her fiancé with another woman and screamed in grief. But as for Paprizo, when he found out that his fiancé had a lover, he was actually glad, because now he was free for Andrea. Casanova managed to charm Francesca and prove that he loved her. But the girl began to suspect that this man was not who he claimed to be. Right then, she saw a poster with the real Paprizo.
Who are you? I'm Casanova. What? I'm Giacomo Casanova.
This was the worst thing Francesca could hear, because she fell in love with the scoundrel Casanova. The balloon crashed with its passengers. Pucci ran up to him and arrested Casanova not only for being a libertine, but also as a heretic who wrote his blasphemous little books. Casanova admitted to this as well in order to protect Francesca. The vengeful Victoria volunteered to testify against Casanova.
I have no doubt that we can restore your reputation and return your virginity to you. You can do that? Oh yes. We are the Catholic Church. We can do anything.
But things are going wonderfully for Giovanni. He slept with 10 courtesans in one night, and all of them were absolutely delighted. Thus, he finally caught Victoria's attention and confessed his love to her. At the trial, Francesca once again put on a masquerade and confessed that she was actually Bernardo Guardi. And then Victoria suddenly withdrew her testimony. The delighted Doge was about to release Casanova, but Pucci reminded him that there were still 127 other complaints previously filed. The Inquisitor will send both of them to the gallows, the heretic and the libertine. A huge crowd gathered in the square, eager to witness the execution. The Cardinal was also supposed to appear here. He almost arrived late, but managed to make it at the very last moment.
My nanny.
Suddenly the Cardinal announced that today was the Pope's birthday, and on this occasion he would grant a pardon to all the prisoners. The lovers were immediately set free, and the Cardinal invited them to visit his country house. It turned out that under the veil, Casanova's mother was hiding her face. She had returned after all, just as she had promised. In reality, this man was not a cardinal, but just an actor. Soon the deception was uncovered, and the real cardinal arrived at the square. It was Sister Beatrice who became his lover. All our heroes escaped in a carriage to the applause of the crowd. The group overcame the cardinal's men and boarded Papricio's barge, except for Giovanni. He decided that he would become the new Casanova for everyone, especially since Victoria had set her sights on him. Lupo also decided to stay and serve the new Casanova. The adventurer himself gave his successor his sword and sailed away from the furious Inquisitor to Genoa. Victoria and Giovanni lived long and happily, but separately. They were simply too insatiable. Soon Casanova returned to the streets of Venice and seduced thousands of women, while our hero, together with his beloved Francesca, joined his mother's acting troupe.